Now, without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Kryn McClain from CatapalloVR. Dr. Kryn, the session is yours.
Great. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you so much for the introduction. Thanks everybody for being here today. So I have a glorious PowerPoint prepared for you all. But before we jump into that, and maybe we won't jump into that, I want to hear from you in the Q&A. I want to know what's going to be most helpful for you in this session. I can certainly go over PowerPoint of how to create an escape room in CenarioVR and why that's important. But I'm curious if you would all rather see, and maybe we'll do a combination of the two, how that looks in CenarioVR on the back end. So I want to see if anybody has any preference. If not, I'm going to jump right into the PowerPoint and we could always switch over from PowerPoint to CenarioVR. So we can certainly toggle that, but don't be shy. Please jump in the CenarioVR and please jump into the Q&A so that we can see. Great. So we want to see both. Awesome. Backend wants to see some examples. Okay, great. So I am going to set up my PowerPoint here and we're going to get going on that. And then when it seems relevant, we're going to jump into the back end of CenarioVR. And I do have a lot of different videos embedded in the PowerPoint that's going to show you exactly how you can fully utilize CenarioVR. All right, great. I'm seeing a lot of back end and both. So let's get rolling on that. And then Kristen, pop on if for any reason this isn't working. Hopefully my PowerPoint is sharing correctly, because now I can't see any of your questions or answers. So great. So hi, everyone. I'm Dr. McClain. I'm here from CatapalloVR, where we make virtual reality different modules to help autistic and neurodiverse individuals learn different essential life skills safely. So that's my drive for creating virtual reality. And one thing I kind of fell into was, how can I make this fun for kids who might not want to be in therapy? So that was kind of my background and my drive of trying to figure out, how can I be more creative in my learning experience for individuals who have a learning difficulty or maybe learn in a different way. So one night I was up with my son at 2 in the morning and I'm like, wonder what's on CenarioVR. What can we create today? So kind of a direct picture of us, but I'm recreating this, of course. And what I thought about was like, man, how cool would it be to create an escape room? So before I get into all that, I wanted to give a little bit of my background. So yes, I'm a doctor, but my doctorate's in healthcare administration. So I own and operate a company that primarily provides autism services. I'm a certified trauma therapist. I'm a master's in mental health counseling. I'm a female entrepreneur. I have 2 awesome boys, so very proud to be a boy mom. I'm a wife. I got some dogs. I'm a fish mom. But one thing I do like to drive home is my formal coding education, which is absolutely none. So if you're sitting here and you're like, I'm a computer programmer, I got this, that's awesome. CenarioVR will be a breeze for you. But if you're joining us today and you have little to no experience with CenarioVR from someone who didn't come from that background, I just wanted to assure you, you can learn this. It does take some time to learn, but it's not impossible. It's not insurmountable. You don't have to do any of these crazy number codes here. So I'll definitely show you the back end where you're going to see that it's very much set up in a way that makes a lot of sense, at least to me. So you do need to understand some basic coding logic. So like those if-then statements, those and/or conditions and branching. I can certainly go into those if we have time, but that's going to be very important for you as you create your escape room, because things have to trigger at the right moment and they all have to be coded and you have to tell it what to do. Otherwise, it doesn't function. So really understanding, okay, if it's raining, then I take an umbrella. If the user clicks submit, then save the data. So just to kind of get you thinking, because you will get this PowerPoint afterwards. So I just wanted to throw this in there and I will show you how CenarioVR does this on the back end. It's very, very easy to manipulate these conditions as long as you know what you want. So why would you want to build an escape room? There's almost 200 people on this call today. I'm sure we're all in different industries. So one of the things that I've come to realize is that it really boosts team bonding and creativity. So not only did we build these escape rooms for our neurodiverse individuals, what we found was a lot of our employees really liked doing these. And we saw that people started to really bond and kind of get their creative juices flowing. So that is one reason. We saw that we were reducing a lot of workplace conflict. Regardless of what industry you're in, 2.8 hours a week are lost to conflict, whether that's peer to peer, whether that's in-home things coming into the workplace. A lot of different VR-based team building can help prevent and even disrupt those conflicts before they begin to escalate. We are also looking at employee retention. If anybody's in here and doesn't struggle with employee retention, congratulations, you've cracked the code, because I think almost every industry is struggling with some sort of retention. So using some VR escape rooms that are fun, productive, proactive. Think about making an escape room that teaches your company's values or culture, when people are onboarding. So just a really fun way to get people energized for it. Improving engagement and focus, and cost-effective training solutions. So with 95% of employees finding conflict resolution training being helpful, depending on how you design your escape room to maybe prevent conflicts, that can make learning enjoyable. So just food for thought there. I'm going to breeze through that because I want to get to the meat of it. So we've developed over 12 different escape rooms in our module library and offering. And as you can see here, they have all different types of settings, from goblins to pirate ships to mad labs. The possibilities are endless thanks to Scenario VR. So we're certainly going to dive into that. So I want to give you the ultimate cheat code for starting to create your very first escape room. So if you were to come on board with CenarioVR, they have a ton of public scenarios, and they have one called Apartment Escape, and you can download this scenario by just typing escape like I did up in there in that bar, and then re-uploading it by clicking that little plus sign over there. You're going to have all the code and everything to get you started. So if you want to get in and play around with it, this way you can see how it can be built. And this one functions very, very nicely. There's no bugs in it. And it goes over a lot of elements that I'm going to talk about today. But the first stage we're going to talk about is planning your escape room. My first escape room that I built was based on a dream that I had, kind of one of these lucid, crazy pregnancy dreams that I had, where I was this adventurer in this, kind of these hidden temple ruins, and I had to find these gems and bring them to a pedestal to kind of progress and move on. So that's where I made my first escape room, was just taking this idea. And if you look around and really listen, you'll find these stories are really everywhere. So I'm going to show you how I made my first escape room called Hidden Temple Escape. So there's some basic key elements that I think really go into every escape room. First and foremost is time oriented. So there has to be some sort of fail mechanism. It doesn't have to be, but you go to any escape room, you have a limited amount of time. Most of my escape rooms are 5 minutes. I do have one that's 10 minutes that's geared towards younger individuals, but the vast majority are only 5 minutes. And I will show you how you can save a timer from room to room to room. That does take a little bit of extra coding. Next, I always put in a range of difficulty of puzzles. So they're not all easy, they're not all hard. They have kind of this varying degree. And I'll talk about the different types of puzzles that I include in every one of my escape rooms. And then you can translate that to your industry and what makes sense for you. I always pick a theme. Whatever my theme is, I stick to it. So you kind of see in this background, we have this hidden temple. So every single room in the hidden temple has the same kind of vibe and different color tinge depending on which gemstone you're working on. There has to be a really clear objective. So you want it to be crystal clear as what you want the learner to achieve, but do it in a fun story way. So, the hidden temple, there's a boulder that rolls in and you have to try to find the gems to put them on the pedestal to remove the boulder so that you can escape, because right now you're trapped in this temple and you can't move forward without doing that. So think about what that could mean for you in your industry, in your workplace. You can make it just as fun as that, but maybe they're learning your 4 core values, or maybe they're learning parts of your mission statement, or whatever is going on. Maybe they're doing a safety training, a fall training, if you're in some sort of manufacturing industry. just as long as the objective is clear and how they progress can be clearly stated is so important. And then you got to add the sound effects. That just really brings it to life. So I'm going to teach you how to do all of this with your Scenario VR subscription too. So let's work through this. If we have a title and a theme, we're working on the Hidden Temple Escape Room. And the theme is just like ancient ruins. Like I'm picturing vines and, tumbling stones and things like that. And our objective, like I had said, was to find all the color-coded gems, placing them into the shield to lift that boulder, prevent the city from collapsing. Great. So then I kind of created this hub and spoke design. So if you've ever been to Disney World, you walk into one of the lands and there's kind of this hub in the middle, and then you can kind of spoke out and go to all these different areas. And that's how I designed this one. There's a hub, a centralized hub, and then there's rooms where you can spoke out. And depending on if you've completed that room, it'll change some of the conditions as you re-enter that hub. So we have different riddles, timers, drag and drops mechanisms, and enhancing engagement. So we have that same saving that timer feature is super important in between each room so that the timer will progress as the room as the learner goes through that room. So let's take that down and break it up. So this is how the storyline looks. So you have to find these little exclamation points. They're going to reveal that puzzle in each room. You can click on a star to receive a hint. You could only get one hint, so use it wisely. And then very, very briefly describe that you must find all 4 gems, place them in the shield, and so on and so forth. So it's really clear, really succinct, really quick. And we also voice act everything. So we don't expect someone to have to read, like Kristen said in the beginning, accessibility is very important. So we do all the voice acting and make sure there's availability to replay those instructions in case somebody was distracted or maybe missed it, so that they're not stuck in a module where they don't know what's going on. So we always have an introduction scene. And again, you're going to get these slides. And then there's that interactive tutorial scene that you just saw. Then we're going to start that timer. So once they get everything and they're ready, then they start the timer. And then there's 4 puzzle rooms. And then there's an initial locked room. And then the final puzzle scene. And then there's always a resolution. We got to hear how the story ends. So, and then there is a fail scene. So if the timer runs out or there's different fail mechanisms within the module that you can get to, that way you can restart. So let's talk about puzzles and different puzzles you can do in CenarioVR. So there's quick and easy object finding puzzles. So in Hidden Temple, I think there's like a little riddle that you have to click on the rope instead of the snake. Kind of warms people up, gets people involved in looking around in 360. Very minimal challenge, really just focused on observation. Then we get into some drag and drop challenges, which are really fun. So in the temple one, there are 4 different ruins with different symbols on them, and you have to put them in the correct order. And the correct order is when you look down on your feet, you see that there's a little picture there that tells you which order to go in. So I always put a drag and drop something. So it could be anything in your industry. Maybe it's just putting something in order, or just finding things and putting them in the right spot in the room. That just gets people up and moving, gets them going. Then there's some harder ones that we like to do that can't be solved by brute force. So this typically involves, for me, I take, there's a keypad in that apartment one that's really brilliantly coded that you don't have to figure out how to code it because Scenario or ELB has already done that for you. You can create some kind of clue that tests that critical thinking that they have to enter in a 4-digit code, otherwise they can't progress. So these are just some ideas. I'm sure there's a million other out there that you can do to incorporate different puzzles. But my recommendation really is to vary it in difficulty where that player receives feedback and then has that ability to restart that scenario in case they need to do it again.
Dr. Kryn, we do have a question in the chat
Okay,
asking,
great.
do the drag and drops meet AA accessibility standards?
That's a great question. I think it depends how you design it, Kristen, and maybe that's a better question for you. Can you, let's see, who is this? Phil, tell me a little bit more about which standards you're looking for, because I think there's a lot of standards there.
Now, Scenario VR, you are not required to utilize it with a headset. You can utilize it with a handheld device or a laptop or a desktop. So please understand you do not have to be able to specifically have a headset on to have this experience.
There you go. And then Marie just jumped in and said D&D does not meet 508. Um, Oh yeah, sure. So mostly keyboard accessibility. Drag and drops are difficult to code, so slight challenges are. So if you do have that issue where you're worried about that kind of accessibility, certainly, leave the drag and drops out and maybe focus on something else. You could always just do clicks where maybe they have to click something in order. It will take a little bit of different type of coding. But certainly you can yeah, I can understand. So a lot of our drag and drops, instead of like dragging across the whole room, it'll be kind of right in front of you, because on a computer it is very difficult to click, drag, and move it all around. So thanks for that question. Okay, great. So this is kind of how I mind map it out at first. I just kind of get an idea of where I'm going to put these riddles, or where I'm going to put the different what's it called, puzzles. Oop, here we go. And then I do map it out in Excel. So I do take it audio line by audio line, scene by scene, what the script is going to look like, and then the different notes that I have for my programmers. So even though I can program a lot of this, I do get a lot of help from my programmers who are just brilliant at making sure this all goes. So I always like to do audio line, scene, what the script says, any notes I might have for them, and then what are the maybe different music in the background, what volume, what loop I want it to be, and then maybe any sound effects. So maybe there's a page turning, or, different things that can really make it feel like they come alive. So if anybody wants this Excel sheet, I'd be happy to share a blank one with you, so that you can, see how I planned some of these out, or you could just kind of copy what I did here. So there's lots of different tools to create assets. So I'm just going to share a few that I use. You guys might have your own tools, perfectly fine, but I really designed this so that if you had zero background, that you could go on and use my PowerPoint to create your own escape room. So for visual elements, I do use a lot of Adobe Firefly. Of course, you can use ChatGPT's image generator. So I usually, what I'll do is I'll take this image generator, or even take live shots. Or what I'll do, and then I put them into Canva, remove that background. Of course, you can use Photoshop. But again, I said I'm not a graphic designer. So for me, Canva is very easy to use and to get that. And then I also found Meshy AI, which is totally free, and it's text to image 3D models. And that's a great way to get some of those 3D models if you're looking to move some shapes, but you don't have that maybe 3D modeling background, or you don't have someone on your team to create that. Um, and then you can always use the AI generated backgrounds in CenarioVR, and I'll definitely show you how to do that. And they've just upgraded that. So Chris, I'm not sure, there's been a change since I've used or made a lot of our escape rooms. So the backgrounds are much crisper, they're nicer, and they're just fantastic in CenarioVR. And then when you load them up into an actual headset, what I tell a lot of our people is it really looks like you're in a Disney Pixar movie. It really does come to life. So it's really neat, and I'll show you how all that works. So that's what kind of the end scene looks like. So these were all created on Adobe Firefly, and then a lot of these were just assets built right into CenarioVR. So you see these little arrows here. They were made with AI, but these are just icon cards, and these are just generic symbols in CenarioVR, which I think looks really sharp when everything can look really unified for that. So yeah, great. Kristen dropped a update in there for you all. I always like to just kind of show like what that finished product looks like. Great. So I'm also going to show you this other really amazing aspect to ELB that they have, and it's their asset library. So you just log in with your asset library using your credentials, and you can go to stock assets. And before we got on the call, I was telling Kristen, there's not been a sound effects I haven't been able to find. So uh, like I mentioned in the beginning, I'm a trauma therapist, and one of the exposure modules we made was people have this this massive fear of vomiting. So I actually found a couple of videos on people where people are vomiting and sound effects that went along with the module. So I was joking with Kristen. I'm like, if they don't have it in here, you probably don't need it. Like there's some crazy stuff in here that you'll be able to meet all of your needs. So they have lots of different sounds, and it's all in that free domain, so that you don't have to worry about copyrights, and perhaps you have your own library, but if you don't, ELB's got you covered with that, which is, super helpful. So after I get all my assets done, I organize them into folders. So the audio goes into one, my icons go into one, and then my sound effects goes into another one. So by audio, I mean those are the lines. So those are the speaking lines of the script. Sound effects is the music and the sound effects that goes into it. And then icons are like the wizard and all those things. And then I label them in their corresponding names that follows that Excel sheet that I showed you earlier. Then we get into the coding. So let's jump into that. And this is where we might go a little bit back and forth with the PowerPoint and with the back end. But I'm going to show you, I put in a lot of pictures and a lot of videos here. So when you get into CenarioVR, the first thing you'll do is create that new scenario by clicking that blue button. You'll create it, you'll name it, and you can either upload your own image or generate your own AI image. So using that AI wizard, which I'll be happy to show you all. And then here are the options of all the different things you can put into your module. So when I first started, I was like, oh my goodness, what are all of these? I was super overwhelmed. So I kind of made a cheat sheet here for you. So a hotspot, that's a trigger that performs an action. So you're linking to scenes, you're triggering other hotspots. This is your action item. So think of hotspots as that thing that makes it all move. Questions will be able to help you add multiple choice questions to engage your users, so you can always do knowledge checks. I like to do this at the end of scenarios. I don't have any of these in my escape rooms, but that's certainly applicable for a lot of the other modules that we have. And then we have info cards. These are great to display text images. It's ideal for closed captions, and they have a limited font list. So there's not a crazy amount of fonts that you can pick from, which is totally fine. You'll find something that works for you. The nice thing is you can change the background card, color of the card, or the text font any color you want with a hex code or RBG or whatever you have available. And then the audio, that's going to trigger those audio lines, whether that's sound effects or music or voice acting. I always suggest for background music to drop that all the way to level 1. If you have it cranked up, it might overshadow any voice acting, and it can be very loud, even though, of course, you can adjust the volume on the headset. But I always recommend to keep that background music down and keep the audio speaking lines all the way up to 10. Pictures, those are for images without any effects. So they're not hotspots. So if you put a picture in there, I think you can add effects to it and it can do different things, but it can't link it to a scene. It can't trigger things. And we have timers. That's something we're going to talk a lot about today. Those are so important for your escape room. So they have a lot of different settings for timers. It can count down. It can be seconds, minutes. You can change the style. You can change the color of the timer to anything you want. So you can really brand it. 3D models, you can insert a GLB. So CenarioVR has a ton of them for you to use. And then, of course, you can generate free ones on Messy AI, like I had showed you earlier. You can also embed videos. So I make a lot of videos using like an AI generator, so that if I need something that's more descriptive as an instruction to make it interactive, I'll embed a video to play it. And then when the video is done, it can do different things. And then adding that scene, that'll add a completely another scene. So different room within your escape room. And then events, those will schedule different events based on a trigger during the scenario. So there are just endless things you can do. Oh, and I forgot to add a web window. I think at the time when I made this, I didn't know what that was, but I have since learned. So I'll certainly show you that feature, but you can embed an actual web window into your scenario. So let's talk about what this looks like on the back end. So here's a great screenshot of that. So I always like to start by saying, organize your layers. When I first started, I was terrible at this. I just kind of threw everything in there and then regretted my life choices later. So I definitely recommend organizing your layers in a way that makes sense for you. I do like to organize it instead of by maybe line. I like to organize it by audio, hotspots, draggers, drop zones, etc. in groups because it does take a little bit longer to program, but I've noticed when I've programmed it in chunks and then maybe shown everything at once, sometimes there's this weird glitch where it shows it for like a half second then hides it because everything will trigger so quickly, but there is that quick millisecond where things might trigger. Um, so if you're seeing this, switch it up and try to group it so that things are grouped in more like categories. So like audio's all together, your hotspots are all together, your draggers are all together, your drop zones, etc. All right, let's talk about this pesky timer. This took me forever to figure out how to save this timer from room to room. So when you go to exit a room, add a hotspot there, whether it's an arrow, an exit sign, whatever, where you're going back to the hub. Now you're going to right click that and select edit. You're going to go into those action sections and you're going to modify the timer, but you have to modify the right timer. So you have to look into your timer feature and you can see down here is this little teeny tiny number that's really hard to see. So if you're wear cheaters or something like that, or eye strain, this is really tough to see. And Scenario's heard me talk about this. Like this is hard. So you have to come over here and scroll over and make sure it's setting the correct timer to save it from room to room. Otherwise, it doesn't know which timer you want to save. So every single timer you add in Scenario has its own distinct number. So if you need a reference that this is the slide to make sure you have all that. So I think there's a video here that shows you how to do that. So when you get into the room, we ran an event called initialization. So when you hop into that room, you're going to see, okay, what do I want shown here? And as we scroll down, we can kind of see all these different things. So we have this tracking progress. So I have this little HUD screen right here. So every time you get a gem, it'll save your progress. So I go into the red path here, I get the red gem. The next time I come into the hub, I see that there's a check mark here instead of being, and I can't go back in. And there's a little red gem here. So I'm tracking, I can look down. This is a fixed asset where I can see my progress very quickly. Now I'm like, all right, I did the red path. All right, I'm gonna check out this blue path now and go try to get that blue one. You can see the timer went down. It saved my time and I went back into this kind of hub of a room. So when you get to the fail screen and you're coding this, there is a way you can save it. Or you don't have to save their progress. It really just depends if you reset those variables or not. So here, I believe in this one, uh, we did the whole 1980s video game style of womp womp, you got to reset the entire scenario. So you got to do everything again. You don't have to do that though. You can just put them back into the hub with all their progress saved. So you just have to code it. It's really up to you. It's really style. The later escape rooms, we do allow people to save their progress, but in those earlier ones, kind of held true to those old Nintendo days when you died, you're out of lives and you got to start over. And then the last part is play testing everything, definitely run through. And I don't even take my own advice, but try your hardest to run through it first, take notes of all the bugs, and then go and fix them. If you do it in the moment, you can't jump back to where you were in a scene. You have to restart the scene all over again as you're going through it. So then go through, fix your bugs, test again until there's no bugs. The best way to try to break your escape room is to, if you have a kiddo, let them run it. They will find your bugs because they're going to click on everything. You want to make sure there's no audio overlapping. So by that, I mean, if you have different buttons that will trigger different audios, you're going to want to try to click them at the same time, even though, that wouldn't make sense. You wouldn't do that, but somebody's inevitably going to do that. So you want to make sure that that's all clean and tidy so that people can't do that. So I want to jump over now to the back end because I think we still have some time. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. I'm just going to sign into CenarioVR real quick and then I'll reshare my screen. And then tell me in the Q&A what you want to see on the back end. If you guys do want to see a full playthrough, please reach out to me afterwards. Happy to spend some time with you if you want to see a full playthrough of what these escape rooms look like. So we have Hidden Temple right here. And I'm just going to stick with that because this is the one we've been talking about. We've added a tutorial to all of ours as well, totally optional for you. This is something that we created based on the different functionalities of what we do. So we teach people how to drag and drop. We teach people that you have to maybe sometimes look around to find things behind you, all of that jazz. So that's kind of like the tutorial. And then there's this initial layer here has our hook. So we made this on, I think this was just Canva. And then after this is red, this boulder is kind of here. And then you get to go into the temple. So it's kind of aligned with the door here, which is kind of nice. So, and I wanted to show you all too. We just made this using the AI wizard. So I think I like to use the fantasy background. There's all different kinds of different categories you can pick here, and they all look incredibly different. But I do like to do this. So I think I said like outside a hidden temple, or maybe a stone hidden temple covered in vines. And then you just click generate. It takes a few seconds, and then you'll have something, and you can either go with it or you can cancel it out and try again. So this was a really great feature that CenarioVR introduced, because now you don't have to have your own 360 images. Now your imagination is the only thing that's going to limit you. So it does take a little bit of time. We'll give it a few more seconds, but if it doesn't generate anything, we'll move on in the interest of time. Here we go. Ooh, wow. Ooh, that's even nicer than what I have. So you can see here, you can just kind of click around, you can look up. I definitely recommend looking at all 360 aspects of this. Every now and then it'll create a hallucination and there'll be something really, really weird in it. So you just want to make sure everything makes sense, that there's not like 3 suns or 2 moons, and that doesn't make sense for what you're trying to do. I would say though, Kristen, since the update, I don't see that as much anymore, as it was with the older version. At one time I made a image, and there was like literally like this man in the sky. It was just so weird. Anyways, so what is going to be helpful for the background? So I kind of showed you all kind of things along the way here. So once you're in the temple, oh, good, we got a question. Oh, good, that was just Kristen. In the temple here, you see we have our opening layer, and then it has a bunch of things here. You can hide things. That way, when you're in here and working, when you're done with that layer, you can just hide it. You can also lock it so that if you hide it and you accidentally try to move it, it'll lock in place. Otherwise, everything saves in real time. So if I move this, that's saved now. But I can always move it back too, and it does kind of line it up nicely. But yeah, this is just kind of the back end. Here's where that temple timer begins. You can kind of see we've got, if this timer ever runs out, it links to the pit. That's our fail scene. Auto plays. And then in our blue room here, when you leave, I'm trying to find the end layer here to show you how it all saves, but you see a little exclamation point, little wizard gives you a clue. You got to talk to the guards, figure out which door it is. And then once it all triggers and you figure everything out, then you have this little exit arrow where you're modifying that variable. You're modifying the timer. Which timer? So this is 967, because this timer right here, if you go to edit it, you can see right here, 967. So that's coded correctly. So that will come on, and that will save your time. So if this is, showing 4 minutes and 30 seconds, when you go back to the courtyard, it links you, not to that one, links you to this courtyard. I call it courtyard navigation, so I know which one is my hub. And then I'm here, and depending on how things go or which room they've done, you click on show here. And that's my initialization. That way I could copy everything over really quickly in running my event. So we're showing the red gem if the red gem has been selected. So from that red room, this little red gem will show if it's already been selected. So you can select things from other rooms. And as long as you link everything, you can progress nicely. And then, of course, we have that conclusion screen as well. So that is my quick, really, really quick training tutorial on kind of getting a lot. It's a lot to kind of get in here and do this, but um, you play around with that apartment one. That's where I started, and then from that I was able to really learn the coding aspects of it. And this is still a hangover, the apartment one. I've just changed it to also include finding, giving a little bit more lore and context to what we're trying to do here. Um, and then I have a lot more rooms than the apartment one did. I think they only have maybe 3 rooms in there, and I've built it out to be a little bit more extensive. But yeah, I just want to turn it over to you all and see if there's any questions or anything else that I can show you while we still have a few minutes together.
Yep, we definitely have some minutes available, and we have 46 people on this wonderful call. So hopefully we won't have crickets, because otherwise it makes it a little bit boring. And we would love to understand and know what you would like to see. So we had a bunch of people in the beginning saying, hey, show us the back end. What would you like to see on the back end? What would you like Dr. Kryn to walk you through? Go ahead and either put it in the chat.
Creating the different rooms with a set of scenes for the escape room. Can you speak on that? Yeah, I can definitely show you how the wizard looks in there.
Okay, so Matthew's question to the hosts and panelists were, I'm curious about how well the AI wizard maintains consistent theming slash styling when creating different rooms within the set of scenes for the escape room. Can you speak to that?
Sure. So again, we're making these for neurodivergent kids, right? So they love this kind of stuff. And you have to know your audience is the biggest thing. So each of the rooms, as you can see, there's like a little blue tinge here because we're in the blue room. So it's just different puzzles as you go through each room. They're all incredibly different. This is the only room that has people in it. This one has a button in it that's also created by AI. So really for consistency, the only room that has people is this blue room here. Um, so yeah, it's kind of this fantasy realm. As you can see, there's kind of like these portals, there's these guards, and then there's this riddle that they have to figure out. But yeah, totally up to you how you do your style. I guess it's completely up to you.
Dr. Kryn, when it comes to your theme, did you basically use similar keywords when you changed rooms? Did that help with the AI wizard to be able to learn and understand?
Yeah, so what I did, I think, was creating a hidden temple room, and then I would put the color in that I wanted. It did take a few tries, but again, this was when you had the older one, so it is what it is. I mean, it's certainly not perfect, but you can definitely see there's a yellow tinge here. And even when I was showing the group the AI image that was generated today is way better than what I generated when I created this about a year ago. And so I think I even tried to say like green mist or something like that so that it would give these vibes of, the color consistency. So you can see they're all kind of stones. They all have some kind of color in them. Um, and they're all just a little different. So my big thing in for this one was uh, I wanted a lot of different doorways here so that it would simulate going into these different areas. So you're not just going through a wall, so that it actually made sense. Um, but you can certainly create your own images, whether you take pictures or use, Unreal and then import them into here. It's completely up to you what you do.
Dr. Kryn, we have Jerry who asked the question, what if people don't enjoy these types of challenges? How do you get buy-in?
Yeah, so if they don't enjoy it, we have 12 different ones. So they're all different types. And we have over 170 modules on our server right now that we've created all with CenarioVR. So there's lots of different types. Typically, before you go into VR, we ask for consent. And we give them options of like, hey, I think this would work really well with your treatment. This is what we're doing. We're working on executive functioning, and we're working on memory. We're working on, problem solving skills. This is a fun way to kind of think outside the box and to practice those skills. Would you like to give it a try? They could say yes or no. So it's really a challenge by choice. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. That's not something that we're controlling for. And that's why we have a lot of different varieties of different things that people can do. And that's why I say, really mix up your types of puzzles too. So it's not the same one or the same type, and it gives a little bit of variety to the mix.
Stephen is curious to see how it works from a clean slate. He's wondering if you could just start something from scratch.
I could, but you really need to have your assets in order. So, which I do have assets in order. So let's do that. So who asked that?
That would be Stephen. Okay, Stephen, I think she's going to ask you if you can create a background for her. What do you want to see the AI wizard create?
What do we got, Steven? What's on your mind? I do like the fantasy one.
Space.
Oh, I do have a space one. What kind of space? Like, so the space one that I created was kind of like this comic book noir kind of vibe. So tell me, we're going to go on to some kind of space adventure, like a space station? Are we on a planet? What are we thinking?
We are pausing in uncomfortable silence, waiting for Stephen to reply. Sure, whatever. Let's go. Let's go with a space station.
All right. I always like to put some cosmos in there because it's very interesting to see what comes up. And sometimes it's absolutely gorgeous, and sometimes you have to do it again.
Oh, I love it. Tim just recommended Inside a Nebula.
Yeah, I think our escape room's called Mission Nebula. And
And
Stephen, what we do too is once you create one, we copy a lot of code over. So you normally don't even make them from scratch. So I wouldn't use this background, and I'll tell you why. One, we're not on a space station. We're above the earth. And what I've noticed is that if you don't have a floor underneath people, sometimes they just freak out. So
it's a
I
little
wouldn't,
bit unsettling.
it's a little unsettling. It's absolutely gorgeous. I wouldn't use this background. And maybe for space, I probably shouldn't have used that. This is the Neo Toko is what I used for mine. Let me think here. I do like this one. We'll get out the Cosmos. We'll see what it pops up. I don't recommend making something on the fly. I definitely recommend planning it out first, so that you know what's going to go where. It makes this process a lot easier. But for this sake, I think what we want to see, and I'm assuming, like, how do we add in all these assets that you have? Okay, this one's great. Perfect. We're on a station. We've got floor under us. We can see these cosmos. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. I wouldn't actually use this one now that it's turning. But for the sake of time, we're going to use this one. Great, cool.
I see with the keywords it says a futuristic space station, not inside a futuristic space station. Keywords are extremely important when you're dealing with AI.
So what I've noticed too, Kristen, since the update is regardless of what I type in, it changes this here. So I didn't type this in. This
Oh,
is pulling from somewhere else. Like I didn't type any of this stuff. It took my keywords and it pulled somebody who made a really, really long one and gave me this, which this is actually not that bad actually, but it just feels weird to be open into space. So I probably wouldn't use it for those reasons. But anyway, if you wanted the user to start here and see this, you can just change that view. So let's add in let's say, a hotspot. So you can upload, let's see if I can get into some of the ones that we've done. And I have everything. That's in Kidstopia, escape rooms. Now I'm looking for the, here we go. Sure. Okay, let's do this. All right. And let's say we want, man, you have to add stuff in first. So let's say when you click on your cadet here, it's going to give you a gear. So in our space station one that we made, you had to find gears to repair the ship. Let's do that. So let's say when we click on the cadet, we wanted to show this blue gem. Oh, cheat code. Called it blue gem because when I copied over from the last one, from the hidden temple, my original one, everything's called blue gem because when I upload this in here, it'll say, do you want to replace this object with all the other blue gems? And I say yes, and it changes everything through the entire module. Float over. So I'm making another scene so we can link that blue gear to something else. Excuse me. I just kind of want to show you how easy it is to get everything linked together. It's just a matter of getting everything in here. From scratch though, if I wasn't copying everything over and I had everything planned, probably takes a good 2 hours to sit down, write out the script, get all the assets ready. Oh, this is beautiful. I love this. This is great. And then to get in here, after I get all my assets ready, I go through and I make all my scenes without any coding so that I know what I want everything to look like. This is great. So when we click our little blue gem here, we're going to link it to this next scene. We're also going to, when you click the cadet, we're going to hide the cadet because we don't want to see the cadet anymore. Show the blue gem. There he is. And that kind of links. So we can add sound effects. I think we got something. Spaceship door opening. Here we go. We'll drop this volume down. Autoplay loop. Now we got some immersion. And I'm going to restart my share so you can actually hear the sound. I did. Now we have this whole thing. Okay, there's our blue gem. That's going to take us to our next scene. So no, I can't program a whole escape room on the fly. It definitely takes hours and hours to do that. But I do want to just show you kind of, so if we were doing it for real, we'd probably have some sort of context here where you are giving the, you're about to land on an alien planet. Click the gear to launch or to, I don't know, beam yourself down or something like that. So maybe I would even click that first, have that here. Been working with Penn State Health, so everything's in the Penn State Health colors right now, but you can change that color right here. Anything you want. You could do hex codes, you could do RGB, HLS, whatever you want. I'd probably have that first. Maybe even hide that. Usually I would have some kind of audio too that says this, and then the audio done would trigger the next set of things that I want to appear. But that's kind of starting it from scratch, but I don't recommend doing that again. I would go over to your published settings and grab some code that's already there and ready for you. You can certainly do it from scratch. But there's a lot here. I always keep it on downloadable so I know, is there anything that I might want to see how something is coded so that I can maybe replicate that with something that I'm doing in my industry.
Do we
Very good.
have any more questions? Do we have any other recommendations? Anything that people would like to see, experience? One of the things that I love, Dr. Kryn, is the fact that you don't have to have 360 video or
Mm,
360 pictures at the ready, that you
yeah,
can use the AI wizard to be able to create things, as long as you're not trying to create something that is supposed to be like 100% ultra real,
right.
etc. You know what I'm talking about. And I'm pretty sure the rest
Yeah.
of the audience does as well.
Yeah, but if you do need something like that, ELB has a ton of things in their asset library from, geez, just about anything. So like there's bathrooms and you have a lot of rooms though, Kristen, where people can go and grab those hyper realistic ones. I've noticed, I haven't tried this recently, but anything where you need like a clean line, the AI really struggles with. So like we made a bank module, which took quite a bit because we needed those clean lines in a bank to make it feel real, as opposed to being in space. There's a lot more forgiveness there because we've never been on an alien planet. So if there's some wonkiness, it works. So there's that. But yeah, I think Kristen has my PowerPoint. So if y'all want to take a look at that and let's see, can items be made to look like they are on fire? Sure. I'll show you my fire one. Hang on.
We still have 7 more minutes left of everybody's time. If there's stuff that you would like to see, please pop it into the chat and Dr. Kryn will do her best to find it for you.
Right. So cool feature that I figured out how to use later. I made this little tray. I thought, wouldn't it be cool if these little lights here were actually, well, like little tiki torches? So what I did was I went into Canva, found a burning flame video. You can go in here, use this chroma key. And what you do is you find the color that essentially makes the background invisible for you, so that now things look like they're on fire. And it kind of brings the background to life. So yeah, you can make things look like they're on fire.
So chroma key is basically the version of a green screen
Yeah.
for Scenario VR. So you can easily cut away the background of whatever you have and place it wherever you want.
Yep. That was a great question. Any other just general questions of anything you want to see? Let's see. It looks like it does billboarding. And Neil asks, looks like it does billboarding to face the camera. Kristen, what does that mean?
I am unsure. I would have to ask our experts. I can only go so far.
Okay. I'm not sure what you mean, Neil. If you can elaborate or clarify, happy to answer if I can. But if you're asking about changing the point of view, you certainly can. You can make it start wherever. But I don't think that's what you're asking, but happy to answer if you wouldn't mind clarifying. Yeah, so this looks very 2D on a computer. Like I said, in a 3D, when you put on that headset, everything looks so three-dimensional. It does look like you're in this cave. Now you can't move in Scenario VR. One thing that we did start doing and start playing around after we came back from the ELB or the Devler, had my intern make this bamboo forest that moves, it sways. So now we have a 360 video that's not just, oh, I'm not the right one. No, there it is. I did do. So we can fast travel around these different spots so that it does change your perspective. So if you are really keen and savvy on making something in another engine, you can import. So the water's moving, the bamboo is swaying. We have an extra version of this too that's a lot more realistic, where we put in some different rays and things like that that shoot down. So you can do a lot in here, especially integrating other tools too. So it this feels very real. I just wanted to show that too.
I
Yeah.
love it. Okay, we've got about 3 minutes left. Do we have any other questions, or should we wrap it up and thank Dr. Kryn for her time? Completely up to you guys. This is your space.
Yeah, we have lots of different things we've done outside of escape rooms. We've taken a lot of those public scenarios and made them ours. Like, so Kristen, we took that space scenario that you guys have where you're on a spaceship and you're learning about Mars. I took it out of Mars, but we talk about sexual safety and consent. So I like to say we made sex education fun by incorporating a video that talks about body safety and consent and boundaries. And then they go around the spaceship answering questions based on that video. So that's gotten a lot of likes. Can you implement analytics in this as well? That's going to be, I'm gonna, Neil, I'm gonna have to turn you over to ELB for those sorts of questions. So I'm not a ELB employee. There are analytics, but you would probably have to talk to some member of their team to get the full scope of that.
Anil, as long as you have the hosted version of Scenario VR, you do have analytics included. If you just have the authoring version, analytics are not included.
So Christina, as far as picking up a fire extinguisher to put out a fire, that's actually a module that just got dropped into the pipeline yesterday of how do we work a fire extinguisher and put it out. It's not going to be, there are definitely, I think, creative ways you can get through that. So for example, in our manufacturing one where we have spraying your gloves with anti-static spray, what we do is we have the spray and then as you click it and hold it, the spray comes out. So you would have to be a little bit creative. It's not going to be as, I think, robust as some of these other fire extinguisher modules that you've seen, but you can certainly pick it up and drag and drop a fire extinguisher to put that out, or you can have it where they click on it and then boom, the spray comes out. But it's not going to be as if you can move it around. And I could be wrong, Kristen, but I don't think you can move an object around to drag and drop it where maybe if there's multiple drop zones, but I'm not quite sure.
As it's moving,
I don't think
I would
so.
have to check. I will not say no, but I will not say yes either.
Yeah. Christine, that's something we've been thinking about how to do that in scenario as well. So if I figure it out, I can certainly let you know if you'd like to stay in touch. You scan my little QR code if anybody wants to stay in touch. Add me on LinkedIn. Would love to hear from you. Love to keep in touch with you. Would happy to answer any questions. Again, I don't work for ELB. I'm just here on their behalf. I love Kristen. She's my girl, and just happy to help anyway. So if you want to learn anything or if you have any questions, I'm just a resource for you all because I'm a firm believer that there's more than enough customers for everybody out there, and the more we can stick together and help each other, I think that's when we all can win. So please connect with me. Please stay in touch with me. Let me know that you saw me on this ELBX online so that I know you're not spamming me. And would love to stay in touch. So again, I'm still learning. It's a learning process. It's a growing process. Super vulnerable, showing you all my first escape room compared to the escape room I made most recently. Completely different. So it's certainly a learning process. So you should be embarrassed of the first one you've made. That's how you know you've made progress. So you just kind of got to get out there and try it, and as long as it doesn't have any bugs in it, you're good to go. So that you can always improve on it.
As long as our software is evolving with the rest of you, we're happy because that's exactly what we should be doing. We should be staying in front of the pack. We should be helping you out, and we should be there to be able to enable you to create absolutely fantastic and fun learning, because that's seriously, in the end, is why we're all here, to make sure that everybody learns and has a good time. Okay, we are now at 1 minute after, and we're going to say thank you so much for being here at ELBX Online. Thank you so much, Dr. Kryn. We appreciate you a lot.
Thank you.
and you have some fantastic things that you've made with Scenario VR, and we cannot wait to see exactly what comes up next. You will
Yeah.
be receiving this recording in your inbox tomorrow before noon Eastern, we promise. And if you do not find it, go ahead and email me directly. I promise you'll get an email from us. So have a great rest of your day and take care. Happy holidays.